once again, Charles King. Listen, I know I was supposed to upload a new video some time ago in October, but let's just say a few things have been going on lately. A little trouble here and there, and a few other things I won't really get into right now, but I'm back right now, and I'm finally here to put my thoughts on Questions of the World Part 3. Now, in this one deals with privileges. For the longest time now, people are always saying that cisgendered men always have it more easier in life. But from what I can gather, it's no longer the case. Now, throughout history, we all know, for the longest time now, women were seen as second-class citizens, as jokes, tools to be used at men's enjoyment. Now, that is the case in many places in the world, and some parts of the world to this very day. But it's not a global case, and it's nowhere near the scale on what it is. In fact, there are certain parts in history that make me question whether or not it really was as bad as what it is described. Now, there were horrible dictators out there, but there were other horrible female dictators as well too, who did atrocities so gargantuan that they eclipse even what certain men did. Now, we're going to take a look today on some of the women who, at one point in the past, present, and who knows what could happen in the future, and let's just see how much privilege that men really do have in this world. This woman right here, I'm having some difficulty to make sure I pronounce her name properly. I think it's Delia Dipolito, something like that. But yeah, so forgive me if I may have butchered her name. But let's get to the main point about this woman. Now, this woman was, for all intents and purposes, a gold digger. Now, I've seen many gold diggers in my life from before. Some have swindled men out of their money, some have tricked them into contracts and everything like that to make them sign over whatever they are to them. But hey, to each his own. I'm not justifying what they're doing in any way whatsoever, but some people are just naturally greedy. However, there are some people out there who take their greed to such a level that they would commit murder. Well, now that's crossing a whole nother line altogether. Now, here's what I find interesting about this woman's story. From what I can gather, they set up a fake murder because, as it turns out, when she went to do the setup in order to set up the murder for her husband, she was actually in the car of an undercover police officer. And they got her on video evidence confessing that she wanted him dead. She said, and I quote, "I am 5,000% sure I want him dead." So they set up the scenario and make it seem like she actually got away with it and did the usual crocodile tear stunt, even going as far as to bringing in the guy who she spoke to make her believe that this was the real thing. And then ultimately said, you know what, screw this. Look, we got you on tape. We know you set up your husband to get killed, and now you're going down.
So if we go ahead and we do it, like, at the house, like, how soon could you do it? And
I could do it Wednesday morning. You know, he gets two in the head. That's it. You know, I take a couple things with me, break a couple windows, make it look like a robbery that went bad. It's all over. I'm gone out of there.
I'm a lot tougher than what I look. I know you see me, you're like, oh, what a cute little girl, whatever. You know, but I'm not.
You are. You're extremely beautiful.
Thank you, but you know, I just need to make sure everything's gonna get taken care of.
Okay, so you just had surgery?
His back right here.
Back, all right. Okay. So you're not going to be able to move it.
He won't be able to, like, I mean, he walks fine and everything like that, but I mean, you know, it's going to be like a little bit of a struggle.
Between now and when it's done, you know, you're not going to have an option to change your mind. Even if you change your mind, you're not talking to him.
There's no changing, there's no, like, I'm determined
already.
I'm positive, like, 5,000% sure.
By the time you get back from the gym, you're going to find two things. A dead body in the house, all right, or nothing.
All right.
I want to know if you know this guy. Come here. Bring this guy in here. Get over here. Get over here. You know who this guy is?
No.
You've never seen him before?
I've never seen him before.
That's an undercover police officer. We filmed everything that you did, recorded everything that you did. You're going to jail for solicitation of first-degree murder of your husband.
I didn't do anything.
You're going to jail.
I didn't do anything, please. I didn't do anything.
Tell me you didn't do anything?
I didn't do anything.
You're going to jail today. Your husband is well and alive.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Please, can I see
No,
him?
he doesn't want to see you.
I'm so ready to see him.
He doesn't want to see you.
Please. Oh my God.
He's alive.
Come here, please. Come here. Mike, come here. Come here, please. Come here.
Can't fix this.
Why not? I didn't do anything
I
to
heard
you.
you.
Mike, come here, please. Come here.
Now, this situation did have a bit of a happy ending, but what I'm getting from what I read about her story is this. This woman didn't take 1, 3 trials to get convicted. Yeah, it took 3 trials. It took 3 trials in order to be fully convicted. Even though they have her on clear video evidence about her confessing, saying that she's 5,000% sure that she wants her husband dead. They have her there guilty as sin. They literally have the guy who she was going to use to set up the murder and everything else. And ultimately, let's see, she spoke to her husband over the phone saying, "How could you believe I would want to kill you?" Even though literally they have her on tape. And what does her, and she also got a call from her mom saying that, "How many times did I tell you to leave him? How many times?" Yeah, she's the one at fault in this. Sorry, I mean, he's the one at fault in this story. For her going through the murder scheme just so she could swindle him out of everything he has. Yeah, this is unbelievable. Now, in the first trial that they used for this woman, they used the defense saying that since her clip, the clip of her confessing and freaking out and everything like that, was used to glamorize the case and may have influenced the jury because they may have seen it on YouTube, they brought in a whole new set of jurors. And these people hadn't seen the clip from before, and ultimately it was the same thing once again. However, I also heard that the woman was also pregnant for another man at the time. So it took a third trial to convict this woman. Now, I've heard many cases out there where there are men who, just from even speculation, has been spending time behind bars. Just from speculation. No clear, solid evidence whatsoever. It's just, "Oh, help me, officer, help me, he touched me, he groped me," and all that stuff. Now, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't really happen. That there are some men out there who are douchebags that push themselves upon women. But there are so many times now when we have cases where there's no solid evidence, even women who don't even so much as even have a fingerprint on them, get these men locked away for nothing. Sometimes it could be for vengeance, sometimes it could be for money, or who knows what else in their twisted imagination. Now, before I get back into the whole darker parts, for this part, I'd like to take a more lighter look on the situation. I'll get back to more serious stuff in a moment, but let's take a quick look back on a few lighter moments. Now, here's something else now. Now, a lot of times, people out there are thinking that only women will find female empowerment movies entertaining. Well, as far as I know, since the day I was born and up until now, I am a male. And I've watched many female empowerment movies with my mother. Here are just to even name a few. I love Ripley in the Alien series. Fantastic female warrior. Then there was the woman that came in the Underworld series. Hell, she can really give Blade a run for his money in his franchise. Hell, I felt it actually dealt more better with the vampire mythos than even Blade did. And then, oh my god, people keep on saying that movies like the Ghostbusters remake in 2016, the Harley Quinn movie, and then there's Charlie's Angels. Now, all of these movies all have one thing in common, and it's not that it's used female roles. No, no, no. What they all have in common is that it's filled with narcissism. In every situation, when all of these other films that came out after 2010s, one common theme always came about it. They kept on saying men are sexist, they're pigs, and that there is no way on earth they're going to want to see a female empowerment movie. Yet, decade before those came out, there were tons of female movies out there that did great. Some even did better than even male movies. Now, The reason why I bring this up is because when it comes to entertainment these days, they keep on trying to use this woke propaganda where they're saying that if a man doesn't come and watch these movies, then he's got a problem with women feeling strong. And yet they keep on ignoring all these previous films right here again and again and again. Now, take this for instance. Now, James Bond, he is so popular of a character because he's based on a real life person. From what I can gather, they say it was this British guy that existed back in World War II. I don't really know his name completely. I'll look in more into that. But the point is, they say that this is who he was based on, and a lot of the inspiration from him came from this character. Now, James Bond has always been a British male who was suave, the perfect ladies' man, and always was there to save the day. Now, I'm not saying for sure saying that they couldn't have made a female character like that. But again, this is a guy who is based off of a real world person. Now, it'd be like saying if you're going to take Martin Luther King and have him portrayed in a film by a white actor. I mean, that would go against who the person really is. I mean, if it was a fictitious character altogether, you can pretty much make them however you want. But since these are based off of real life people, if you're going to take it and change it like that, that means you're not really honoring the person's memory. Because a lot of times films are dedicated to someone from the real world or something that inspired it. So basically, when you're taking the mythos and changing it like this, you're not honoring anything. You're only making the person's legacy into a joke. Serious tones of this story. Now, there are women out there who have said that feminism is no longer what it once was. And you know what? I do agree with them wholeheartedly. Because like I said from before, at one point, it was pretty rough for women out there in the world. And there are certain parts where that may still be the case, but it's not as bad as they always talk about. As a matter of fact, it's been so greatly exaggerated, even certain feminists are asking, what are we fighting for? What is all this about? What's the end game? This woman, for example, they say her name is Alice Coffin. What a morbid name, Coffin. But anyway, now, from what I've read about this woman, she is writing about this book where it's not enough that women just cut men out of their lives. No, no. In her mind, they're saying that women should eliminate men from out of their minds. And in certain cases, I think the world. I think she really wants to exterminate all men. And for whatever reason it is, I have no idea. From what I've heard about this woman, I haven't really heard any stories about having really negative experiences with men. No assault, molestation, or anything like that. From what I can gather, this woman just hates men for whatever reason it is. I have no idea. And the fact of the matter is, the reason why these kind of things get to me is because, how can I put this? There's an old saying in life. You tell a lie enough, eventually you yourself are going to start to believe it. And you know what? I've seen a lot of women like her keep on saying all these things, and they're starting to incorporate it into their lives. I mean, there was a woman who said that she started to make a couple of jokes about men here or there, and then eventually it got so to the point where she herself said, I don't know what's happening to me. I just want to go out there and beat on men, even if they're just walking down the street, they're not doing anything. Like she realizes how far she's become so influenced by these type of people that she lost herself in the process. That's the problem with these type of things. They don't realize the impact that they can have on people. One minute they can say they're joking about this, they're joking about that, and eventually they become so consumed by this false identity. They don't realize they lost their true identity in the process. Now, I'm going to be showing a few clips from a woman that actually helped me find out a lot about these things. Her name is Cindy Watson. And I'm really hoping that if she sees this video, then hopefully one day me and her can have a personal talk about these matters. Because she herself is one of the few female YouTubers who I can honestly say is a better definition of a feminist because she's not afraid to call out the bullshit that exists into it. She says, yeah, there are some douchebag men out there, and yes, there are, but she also knows there are douchebag women as well too, and is not afraid to stand up to these people when she knows they're wrong. And that's what makes me really want to know, where on earth is it that they lost their identity in this whole story?
We have to erase men. Lesbian author who urges women to eradicate men from their lives racks up 5-star reviews on Amazon, but some argue it's a form of apartheid. Actually, as of filming this, it has 4 stars. And this is my favorite 1-star review that says it is excellent for putting you to sleep quickly. The book in question is called Lesbian Genius and was written by a French woman who is also a Paris councilwoman, whose name is Alice Coffin, or as they would say in French, Alice Coffin. She says that she no longer reads books written by men, or watches movies made by men, or listens to music made by, you guessed it, men. What she's describing sounds a little like living in an entire world made up of only Amy Schumer, and maybe her comedy, and maybe that one female-only film of Ghostbusters. It's not enough to help one another. We have to erase them. Erase them from our minds, from our pictures, from our representation. I don't read books by men anymore. I don't watch their movies or listen to their music, she writes. Alice admits she imagined herself as a boy when she was younger, but now believes being a lesbian is a greater achievement. A greater achievement than what? Better than what? Better than being a man. Duh. Huh. I thought you couldn't choose those things. Well, I'm pretty sure that also that you can. Now, some of the reason why Coffin doesn't want to associate or engage with men is because, surprise, surprise, she believes that men have sowed the seeds of misfortune, that movies have turned women into objects, and that women had been abused for centuries, and their history has been lost without a trace. It is also very interesting to me how someone who dresses in a traditionally masculine way wants to erase men. That's also a lot of fun. Now, while some feminists did hit back at this idea, which is totally shocking to me, it is very reminiscent of another book that recently went viral. And this other book is much, much worse. We should have the right to not like men, says the French writer at the center of literary storm. Well, at least they're not hiding it anymore. So this writer basically wrote a book called I Hate Men. Because of course she did. And the book mostly asks whether or not sexism is a way out of oppression, whether or not anger towards men is a joyful and emancipatory path to take, and largely defends misandry and man-hating as liberating. What? Do you have anything to add here? Oh, I don't hate all men. Just the straight white ones. The book was picked up by a small French publisher and has been reprinted several times, and interestingly, picked up by HarperCollins. In fact, this book will be published and appearing on shelves in major stores in January of 2021. Yes, a book called I Hate Men will be appearing on shelves. Now, you guys know me. I don't like censorship, and I'm certainly no authority on when it should be employed or not employed, but what? I want you to imagine for a moment if a man had written a book called I Hate Women that encourages men to actively hate women. Now I want you to imagine what that might look like. Publicly. Just for a second. Feminists won't even let movies like The Red Pill be viewed because apparently it's misogynistic. There is no way in the 7 depths of hell that they would ever let a book like that be published, let alone go on the shelves, without someone or many people being decapitated. Figuratively, of course, this is not France. But oh, when it comes to men, the hatred is fine because you're all dirty pig people and rapists and murderers. Yeah. Now, what's really interesting about this story is that the French government actually tried to have this book banned because it incites hatred on the grounds of gender. And they're actually not wrong. And while the book doesn't appear to be calling for violence or anything like that, it is actively telling people to hate men. In the writer's own words, she says, "If we are heterosexual, we are encouraged to like men, but we should absolutely have the right to not like them. I realize this sounds like a violent sentiment, but I feel strongly we should be allowed to not love them as a whole and make exceptions for certain men." Now, I don't want to personally attack these people, even though they're advocating for hating, like, you know, half the population. But I actually really believe that this writer just isn't that smart. In an interview, she says that misogyny is the root of systemic violence and then goes on to cite incorrect statistics about domestic violence. If you're new here, I have made countless videos about domestic violence and the statistics and data that go along with that, which you are more than welcome to check out. But also, and this is perhaps the best part, she goes on to say that misandry, or man-hating, has never killed anyone. Oh, interesting. It hasn't, has it? Is it time for a montage? Is it time for a montage? It's time for a montage.
All right, ahead, a Michigan woman convicted of arson and the murder of her husband is telling her story
after she allegedly poured gasoline on her husband and then set him on fire.
A Lansing man is in critical condition tonight after police say his girlfriend stabbed him.
He says he had one thought.
This woman's gonna kill me.
I know a woman who's trying to hire a hitman to kill her husband.
The damsel of death and the hooker from hell.
Joanne Dennehy went on a killing spree, murdering 3 men and attempting to kill 2 others.
Misandry, or man-hating, has never killed anyone.
Wrong.
Naturally, when I find these super weird, obtuse stories, I want to know how much support is actually behind these ideas. And I mean, in this case, you know, this book sold 2,000 copies and now has been picked up by a major publisher, so there's that. But man-hating as an idea is not terribly uncommon. And when I went online to sort of gauge the general sentiment about this topic, I found that it wasn't as fringe as I would have liked. I found plenty of articles, comments, and justification for hating men. And I get the sense that a lot of women or feminists really subscribe to the idea that men are the root of all their problems. I do want to add here too that I did find a lot of women and or feminists saying that man-hating is completely not helpful and is not a representation of feminism. So credit where credit's due. I'm not a monster. In saying that, I do want you to take these Reddit comments for example. These women are arguing that the majority of men are not worth trusting, that men hurt them and continue to hurt them and have done so all their lives. And yeah, there are some crappy people out there. All of us agree on that. But I find this view so myopic, and I've talked about this before in other videos, how we routinely overlook bad female behavior, how we hold men and women to different standards, and how honestly and statistically, we actually view women as better people than men. So of course, when we're told day in and day out how bad men are, distrust is probably going to be a natural byproduct. And to only compound this is the fact that mostly and on the whole, we tend to ignore the male experience. We don't talk about men and their negative experiences with women. We don't talk about male victims. We don't talk about male victimization because society just isn't interested in the suffering of men. And then you have women who are proudly posting photos of their feminist book collection, and if this is a basis from which they're determining their worldview, then of course man-hating is going to seem justified and okay. I am really not into burning books, but I can make an exception. While I was reading about all of this, a woman sent me a message on Instagram that really stood out to me. I used to be a feminist because I thought it was about empowering women, when in reality, it was about putting down men. I used to hate men and think that the world would be better off without the patriarchy. When I started dating my now husband, my feminist beliefs could have robbed me of this great marriage. I felt guilty for loving him because he was a man. I wasn't okay with PDA because he was a man. A white man at that. I had to unlearn the hate feminism taught me so I could love my husband freely and wholeheartedly. I'm so glad I walked away. And without being tremendously dramatic, I do believe that this sort of sentiment actually encapsulates what modern feminism does to a lot of women. Especially if they're reading books that tell them to openly hate men and erase them from their lives. The essence of the writer's entire thesis can be summarized as her having once helped the female victims of rape and sexual assault. She thus feels confident enough to use criminality to spread collective guilt against all men. It's certainly a view, but not one that is easily reconciled with the writer's apparent living in domestic bliss with a supportive husband. In short, if these women are being honest with themselves, then it does actually require them to admit that it isn't actually all men. Because if they like their boyfriends or their husbands or their dads or their uncles or their brothers or whoever, then they do actually have to admit that not all men are bad.
So you see, there it is. This is the kind of stuff that I've been talking about for the longest time right now. And same with her too. I truly enjoy how she put it into these terms right here, because there's a lot of things that up until I saw her video, I was completely unaware of it. Listen, hate is hate. And the thing is, when you have hatred in your heart, you have no idea how it can manifest. There's a lot of people out there who channel their hatred into all kinds of different things. Some people who couldn't have gotten something for Christmas, their birthdays, or who knows what else. The point is, that lingering feeling stayed in their hearts until it was just ready to burst and unleash hell upon anyone who was sorry enough to come across their path. The fact of the matter is, we can't keep using that. Hatred is only going to be gotten more hatred. And the fact of the matter is, sometimes we're so consumed by our hatred, we destroy not only ourselves, but the people around us. And it isn't until we see the last breath from whomsoever we've hurt in our lives, then, and only then, do we take it really for serious. So on this, folks, I'm about to wrap up this story. Basically, all 3 of my videos were basically about one simple thing. Taking responsibility for our lives and seeing what could be the impact. In part 1, I discussed about how it is that we seem to be pandering to everything in the LGBT community, unaware of the fact of the matter is that it's not even the people who are in the community that are doing all this, it's the corporations. The corporations themselves make it seem like they're saying we're all for this and we're all for that, when in fact they're just using them as a commodity. Same thing also goes for my second video when it comes to the transsexuals. Basically, it's the same thing there too. They're going to say that if we can get enough of these people on our side, then maybe our products or whatever we're endorsing can grow to new heights. For example, when you have male athletes who can't even come in, let's say, even 3rd place when it comes to racing against their own gender, and then having them break records when they're going up against biological females, that just goes to show they're not really looking out for the women in that department. They're just trying to make it seem that way. I mean, I know, don't get me wrong. There are some people out there who legitimately have a concern about their placement in the world. But then there are those who basically can use the system against itself. One minute they can say that I'm a masculine man saying I want to beat the shit out of anybody, and then when they realize they can't win, they go up against a weaker division. This is just them manipulating the system. And finally, number 3, privilege. There is no real privilege when it comes to these things anymore. You can't say that just because you're a woman you can go out there and tarnish a male's reputation. But at the same time, you can't pretend at the same time that there aren't some men out there who are legitimate jackasses, but you cannot use them to just completely shit all over the male demographic. You can't just say because you may have had a bad experience here or there that you can just use that judgment to castrate all males. And believe me, there are some women out there who are legitimately asking for all males to be castrated. The point is this, folks. Each one of these things is a reflection on how the world has completely turned itself upside down. But we're about to enter 2021 right now. I don't know if it's going to be today, tomorrow, or possibly not even in my lifetime. But there once was a time when we all could look to each other for help. My hand in yours, your hand in mine. Where did all of that go? Where did we really try to help each other instead of backstabbing each other at every single turn? This has to end. If we don't do something now, the whole world will just be gone before we realize it. It's high time that we go back so we were all united. And on that note, wish you all a pleasant good night.
Are still the same.